Today is a very special day for me. 6 years ago today, I moved into my car. August 5th, 2017. And so I thought we'd celebrate with some very cheap champagne that was about $5. And finally answering the questions that you guys asked me. I've never opened a bottle of champagne before, so. This is gonna go well. So we'll start off easy. Why did I decide to live in a car? Basically, I got drunk with my roommate at the time when I lived in Pennsylvania. We got drunk together and we were watching a Planet Earth documentary series, and we just kind of started talking, and he really wanted to go out west, and he was talking about how he wanted to move to California in his smart car. And I just had this weird idea that I wanted to start traveling, and I thought living in a car was the best way to do it. So yeah, basically I got really drunk and decided that I wanted to quit my job, give up my apartment, give up my life in Pennsylvania, and hit the road. And then we woke up the next day extremely hungover, and we kind of both decided to follow through on what we said, and I think we really held each other accountable. I'm not sure if I would have done it without him, and I'm not sure if he would have moved to California without me. I think we sort of pushed each other to really follow through. Alright, next up, how do you afford this lifestyle full-time? Average cost of what you're doing, payments you make, things like that. So I have very few payments that I make monthly. Basically, I pay my car insurance, which I think is now about $100 a month. I pay my phone bill, which is $65 a month. Yeah, I have no debt. I have no loans. I have nothing to pay on that. And I pay gas, food, basic living costs. I do this lifestyle very cheaply as possible. I don't pay for camping. Everything's free. I don't drive that much anymore. But basically how I afford this lifestyle has changed over the years. So when I first started off, I lived for a full year and a half just off my savings. And I just traveled a lot, drove a lot, put a lot of miles on this car. And yeah, just really enjoyed the first year and a half, just had fun. And then I started doing seasonal work at different national parks. So there's a website called Coolworks, and it kind of just gives you, seasonal jobs, few months, 3 to 6 months. There are full-time jobs, but I was interested in seasonal. And you'd go to different national parks and work. Usually they provide some kind of housing or meals or camping or something. And yeah, you'd work. And it was a really good balance of being able to have a job, but it was a job, say, in the middle of Death Valley. So you kind of got the experience of being in these really awesome places. And it didn't really feel like work that much. It was really good experiences doing it. I really enjoyed it. I made so many friends out of it. And yeah, so I did seasonal work at national parks. I worked at a few different ones. I'd also work at small towns sometimes. I worked in Lone Pine at Subway. I worked at the Subway at Olympia. Yeah, so just, you made it work. And then COVID hit, and I started doing gig work. So I did basically Instacart and DoorDash. And I would actually rent a car and do DoorDash and Instacart in the rental car because I didn't want to put the miles on my car. And so I did that during COVID. And then now I do YouTube. So it's kind of grown and adapted over the years. I think the main thing is just if you want to make it work, you will make it work. There's a lot of ways to make money now while traveling. I think seasonal work is a really good way to introduce yourself to the lifestyle because it's a really short commitment. Well, it's really no commitment. You can leave whenever. And you get around people who are doing this lifestyle, who are interested in the same things you are, and you see if it's something you're interested in doing full time. Do I ever get lonely traveling by myself all the time? I get asked this so often. I think I'm different than a lot of people in that way. I don't. I have traveled with other people before. A few different people. some longer than others, and I have definitely found that I don't travel well with other people long term. I can do it in short bursts. I think traveling in another vehicle with someone long term is really difficult for me. I've definitely found that I'm much happier being alone. I'm not very good at traveling with someone. I don't generally crave being with people, especially one-on-one for long periods of time. I would rather be by myself. So I think that's what makes this lifestyle so suitable for me, is I don't need to be around other people. I think a lot of people worry about that with loneliness and things like that, but I think there's a lot of people that live in cities that are really lonely, and you're surrounded by people, but you're alone. I don't know. I have friends everywhere. If I wanted to go hang out with people, I could, but I like this. I think it would take the right person, or I don't know, it would take something to get me to want to do full-time travel with another person, because every time I've tried, it has not ended well. So next one's quick. Have I thought about traveling outside the US? Sure, thought about it. Been to Canada. Got invited to Baja this winter, actually. I think it's tough. The US is pretty easy to travel in, and I know it super well, which makes it difficult to leave. Canada's good. Mexico I would do with other people. I think starting to travel to, say, Europe or countries, you know, where you got to get on a plane and fly, I would struggle with, just because I'm so used to having my car and living with it. I think living in it, I think other forms of travel are just less ideal for me now. It's just so easy what I'm doing now, and it's what I love and I'm comfortable with. But I think eventually, you know, a couple years maybe, I'll start thinking about Europe. I've got some friends in Europe that I would really like to meet. You know, I got another YouTuber friend over in Scotland, I think, and I'd love to meet him. So, all right, safety. Safety is a big question, because I do sleep in a lot of places, kind of like this. I mean, I'm 15 miles up a dirt road in a campground with, someone did just pull in, but, you know, basically by myself. No cell service. Nobody knows where I am. I'm not doing it well. Safety's tough because, I mean, you're inherently more dangerous in a city or in places with more people. I mean, I feel safe out in nature. It's when people show up that I don't. I don't think inherently you're ever going to feel completely safe doing this lifestyle. I don't think it's ever not on your mind. Even just leaving your car at a trailhead and worrying about it when you come back, or going to sleep worrying about, I don't know, getting the knock or something like that. I think that never really goes away completely, but I think it's like with anything in life. I mean, driving a car is inherently one of the most dangerous things you can do. I think it's about deciding, weighing the pros and cons, and deciding if the risk of what you're doing is worth what you're getting out of it. Like, are you willing to, you know, basically risk your life in many ways to do something that you love? And I am, and I'm happy to do that. And you take precautions. You know, I have a stun gun, taser, pepper spray, weapon. You know, you take precautions, but at the end of the day, nothing's guaranteed. I'm not going to be able to sit here and tell you a plan or something you can definitely do to keep yourself safe. I think it's just about being smart, following your gut. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation or a person or anything like that, you leave. What has surprised you the most about the people that you've met while traveling? I think what's the most surprising is how quickly you form friendships with people you meet on the road. It's definitely a much more bonding experience. I actually find it extremely difficult to be friends with people who don't do this lifestyle, but it definitely shocks me how quickly and easily I can feel so connected to people. And even after just a couple of days spending with, like, just a couple of days of traveling with someone, I feel like I've known them for years. And there's just such an ease and a comfort most of the time to people that I meet when I'm living on the road, and the friendship just seems to happen kind of overnight. You drink a beer by a campfire and you stay up till 3 a.m. talking about everything, and there's no cell phones. There's half the time not cell service. There's a really conscious effort by a lot of people doing this lifestyle to be disconnected a little bit more. So you can have hours and hours of conversation and people don't even look at their phones. There's no distractions. It's just people just talking and getting to know each other. So I think that's a huge factor in how it's so easy to form such strong friendships so quickly, is you almost get to experience creating a friendship and there's no external factors to get in the way of that, which I think is a really beautiful thing. And so I actually have found it a lot easier to make friends living on the road than it is when I was living in an apartment or living in a city or something like that. That was a lot more difficult for me because everyone seemed to have their own agenda and they were always busy rushing from one thing to the next. Whereas with this, everyone's kind of just, it's a slower lifestyle. What did I do between the time I graduated high school to when I started living in my car? I worked 3 jobs. So I didn't go to college. I chose not to go to college. And when I graduated high school, I was working at Subway. So I got the job at Subway at 15 and I was working there still. And then the summer I graduated high school, I got promoted to manager. So I was managing the Subway at 18. I worked at that Subway from 15 to 21. And then I also started working at Wegmans, which is like an East Coast grocery store similar to Whole Foods. It had a restaurant in it called The Pub, and I worked at The Pub for 3 years, and I was a waitress there. And then I also worked at a farmer's market. There was an Annie Ann's in the farmer's market, and I worked at the Annie Ann's on the weekends. So basically my schedule was Sunday through Friday. I would work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Subway. And then it was Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would work 4 p.m. to like closing at Wegmans, 10, I believe. And then Tuesday nights, I had private cello lessons that I still took. And I would work a 12 plus hour shift on Saturday at the Annie Ann's. And that was my week. And that was all I did. I worked every day, all day, and I did nothing else for years. Oh, this is good. Okay, car registration, licensing, where do I get mail, things like that, because I haven't had a permanent address in 6 years, basically. So for the first few years of my travels, I kept my registration in Pennsylvania at my parents' house. But then my license was set to expire, and they were doing that Real ID thing or something, so I couldn't renew it online, or I needed to get a picture retaken or something like that, and I wasn't in Pennsylvania, so I ended up getting registered to Washington, which had no state income tax, which was great. Then that was going to expire, and I didn't want to re-register to Washington, so I started looking into it, and basically, long and short of it, is South Dakota. If you are a full-time traveler and you have issues with car registration and licensing, you should become a resident of South Dakota. Basically, they have a program for full-time travelers, RVers, things like that, where you actually only need to stay 1 night in their state to become a resident. You do not need a permanent address. You basically need a receipt from a hotel or campground proving that you have spent 1 night at their state, and then you basically have to sign up for a mail forwarding service, such as America's Mailbox, and that will be the address on your license. And yeah, so you sign up for that. I believe I'm paying $170 a year for America's Mailbox. And then I went to South Dakota. I spent 1 night there at a hotel. I got a receipt. And then I went into the licensing office. And basically that receipt and America's Mailbox proved me as a resident of South Dakota. And I got my licensing and car registration. I think I was in South Dakota for a total of 3 days. Just setting up the appointments and everything, and I drove off, and I don't have to go back for another 5 years. Just where am I originally from? I'm originally from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, born and raised, and then moved out to the countryside. Philly, East Coast. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Marriage, kids, house. What are your future goals? That's heavy. In 5 years, I see myself doing this. 10 years might be a different question, but in 5 years, I see myself doing this. I'm not opposed to marriage. However, I think there'd have to be like a tax benefit to it. I 100% absolutely do not want children. I have never wanted children. It's just not something I'm interested in. I think inherently, in some ways, acknowledging my faults, I think I'm too selfish to have children. I think having children is a very selfless act, and I don't think I am interested in that at all. That's really important to me, especially in the dating world. I'm very upfront about that to begin with. You know, I say I don't want kids, and if kids are something that they're really interested in, you know, that's just not something that's going to work, and I think that's completely respectable and okay. I think it's okay for someone to want kids, and it's okay for someone to not want kids. I think the issue comes when you try to make a relationship like that work, because at the end of the day, someone's going to sacrifice something, and there's going to be resentment there, and I just don't think that's healthy. So, no kids. Marriage, maybe. Kids, no. House, sure. I'd like land. I'd like a cabin somewhere on acres of land. I'd like to have dogs. I really want dogs. I want the simple life. I want to walk out my front door with a cup of coffee in the morning and look at my land and have a garden and just live a simple life. Someone wants to know what to do when your family is not supportive of this lifestyle. I am not the person to ask. My family is so supportive. I mean, they are the most supportive. Get this, my family they were excited when I told them I was quitting all my jobs and moving into a car. They were excited for me, okay? If that tells you anything about them. Maybe if your family's not supportive, because there was plenty of people who weren't supportive of me doing this lifestyle. It just wasn't my family. And I think it took me doing it and showing them that I could do it to prove them wrong. So maybe you have to set out without their support and then show them why you deserve their support and why they should give it to you. What do you do when you have to take your car to the shop? I actually did that today. I just got my car back from the shop. I think for some people it's a lot more inconvenient. This kind of ties into another question somebody asked. They asked about mileage and repair issues with my car. So these kind of go together. I have not really had any huge issues. The biggest issue was my catalytic converter got stolen in Seattle, but I had a friend to stay with at that time, so that was fine, and I haven't had any real issues since, nothing that's taken longer than a day. I think the biggest thing for me is I have, like, a mechanic that I love in Seattle. It's the Import Doctors Foreign Auto Service, and they are so understanding and so good, because they know I live in my car, so they're so good at making sure that, like, they get everything done the same day, or they get as much done as they can, and they make sure that the car is drivable by the end of the day so that I can still sleep in it. They are so amazing. They had to work on my rear suspension, and they let me take everything out of my car at their shop. They let me go in an hour early before their shop opened, and they showed up early just so I could take everything out of my car so they could access the rear suspension. Like, they are amazing. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just having a really good mechanic, because I know there's a lot of channels where, like, car issues are a huge part of just this lifestyle, van life, car life, things like that, where people are always having their car have issues. I think having a Honda Element, inherently it's a Honda, like, yes, things can go wrong, but they're so cheap to fix. They're generally pretty straightforward. It's not a Mercedes or something crazy. There's no wild electronic systems or anything like that. It's bare bones basic. Do I have any advice or wisdom for someone that's just starting out or thinking about doing this lifestyle? Do a trial run. Yeah. That's what I always tell people. I think especially after COVID, van life just in general, and life on the road and a much more freedom, nomadic type of lifestyle has become much more romanticized, popularized, normalized, definitely. And I think there's a lot of people who dive headfirst into it. They get the van, they do the conversion, they go all out, and then they get on the road. I've known a few people. They get on the road and they realize, A, they don't like the lifestyle, they don't actually enjoy it. B, they wish they'd gone with a smaller vehicle or a bigger vehicle. They wish they miss their family, they miss stability. I think now there's just so many van life channels and car life channels. Hi, I'm one of them. And I think even the ones that do like the worst parts of living in a van, or van life is hard, or even those types of videos, I think in a way still romanticize the lifestyle, or the struggle of it. I think inherently you're built for it or you're not. You're made to do this or you're not. Some people love it and some people don't. And there's, Jesus fuck, what is that? And there's nothing wrong with either. Also, wisdom, don't do bus life. If you want a vehicle that is going to have a ton of issues, get a bus. Short bus, long bus, does not matter. If you want an unreliable vehicle, get a bus. Everyone I know that has a bus has had so many issues with their bus. So if you are planning on doing bus life, you should know how to fix it yourself, because they're hard to find people to work on them. They're hard to work on, and they break down all the time. And they get terrible gas mileage. And they're not stealthy at all. So, yeah, I would not do bus life. Absolutely not. How do you find safe dirt roads or places to camp? You hope for the best. I mean, inherently you can't know if something's safe or not until you show up, and your experiences might be different than the next person. Obviously, how do I find just places to camp? Freecampsites.net or iOverlander has a ton of things. They'll have reviews, sometimes they have pictures, information about cell phone service, so this can be really helpful. When it comes to dirt roads, most of the campsites I find are not on iOverlander or free campsites. Most of the best free campsites I found have just come from driving miles down dirt roads and eventually ending up somewhere amazing, but it's just complete luck, and you have to fail a lot and go down a lot of dead ends before you find what you're looking for. So how do you find dirt roads and places to camp? You start off with iOverlander and freecampsites.net, you move to just National Forest Roads or BLM land, and then you just drive. And hope. If you had the opportunity to switch to a new vehicle, would you? And is there anything about your vehicle you would change? I have had the opportunity to switch to a new vehicle. I actually had the opportunity to live in a fully converted, basically brand new Ford Transit extended high roof van, all the bells and whistles. And I said no. So I have had the opportunity and the option, and when fully presented with the idea of it, I realized it's too much. It's too much vehicle. It's not... I don't want to be mean. It's basically an apartment. It's an apartment on wheels. It's got everything you need. There's nothing difficult about it. There's nothing... It just doesn't feel adventurous. Because, sure, you can go to the most adventurous place, and then you walk in, and you've got a stove, cabinets, a bed, seating, lights, air conditioning, heating. You've got insulation. Everything's protected and safe, and... I respect the vans. I think the van builds are incredible. I think what they can fit into that space is incredible. However, I think, especially the big vans, I think if something happened to Elrond, I mean, I'm with him. Like, I'll do engine swaps with him. I'll pay the money to keep him on the road. Like, unless he gets totaled, he's with me, and we are together till the wheels fall off. Shout out Element Society. I'm not giving up Elrond. But if, God forbid, something were to happen, I'd go with a very small, maybe, van with a high roof that I could stand up in, but small, and just a bed and maybe a small stove. I don't even know if that... I don't know. I've just been doing this for so long, and I love it, and it's not as comfortable, and it has its challenges, but I also think that's part of what I love about it. I think when it gets easy, I get bored. And so that type of van life, the high-end, expensive, fancy van life, no. It's just not for me. Again, no disrespect to the people it's for, but, I had that option. It was staring me in the face, and I walked away. And that was the best decision I ever made. Oh, and anything I would change about Elron, nothing. What would I change about Elron? I guess I'd get a lift kit on him, but I could do that too. I'd like a couple more inches of clearance. Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess eventually maybe I'll do the lift kit. The lift kit's really the only thing. But it does tank your gas mileage, so... No, I think I like him just the way he is. What do I listen to besides music, and do I listen to Spotify or Apple? So I have a Samsung, so I listen to Spotify. I don't have any Apple products. So I listen to Spotify. And what do I listen to besides music? There's a podcast on Spotify called Binge Mode, and they have Binge Mode Harry Potter, where they went chapter by chapter through all the Harry Potter books. It's hours and hours of content. I have listened to that all the way through. The 1 year on my Spotify and Wrapped, I listened to over 500 hours of just Binge Mode Harry Potter. I'm obsessed. I still listen to it. It's very comforting to me. So I do listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of YouTube videos that are hours and hours long. It'll be like a 2-hour documentary about some plane crash or something like that. I like long form content that I can put on. It's not something I have to watch, but I can just listen to. There's a creator called Mike's Mike on YouTube who makes 2 to 3 hour deep dives into random teen television shows, some of which I've never even seen, but I like listening to him talk about it. And also I wanted to say, I put together a playlist. Someone had asked me, I'm going to link it below. I made the playlist of every song that I've ever sung in any of my videos. I think I probably missed some, but I tried to go through every video and make a playlist of all the songs, and I put them together, and I'm going to link it so that if you want to see how random my music taste is, it's going to be there. And I'm just going to add to it as my videos progress, so it's going to be kind of like an ever-growing and changing playlist, just so that, I think it'd be fun, because, I don't know, I love music. That's my Q&A. I talked a lot. Thanks for asking the questions. Sorry if I didn't get to yours. There was just a lot, and I did my best to kind of answer, I think, just the general questions I usually get, or just the questions I usually get, so yeah. Thank you for asking them. Thank you for watching. Happy 6 years to me. My biggest commitment, really. My longest, my parents, obviously, my longest relationship, but, my longest relationship since I was old enough to decide I wanted one has been with my car. I love you, Elrond. Okay, I'm going.